Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're diving into a story that's, believe it or not, 1,500 years old. It's got a saint, a wild storm, and a question that is, honestly, just as relevant today as it was back then.
And that question is really the heart of the whole thing. What's more powerful, law or love? It's this tension, right? A tension I think we all feel at some point in our lives, that constant pull between sticking to the rules and following a real, heartfelt connection. Now, you might think that's just a metaphor, but get this. In 6th century Italy, one woman's prayer answered that question with actual thunder and lightning. Yeah, for real. This is the core of a story that's been passed down for centuries, a story about a miracle that reveals something pretty profound about where true power really comes from.
Okay, so to really get what happened with this miracle, you first have to meet the two people at the absolute center of it all. They were twins, and they would go on to change the entire course of Western spirituality. So you've got this incredible contrast. On one side, there's Scholastica. She's the saint, the one who really embodies this life of pure love and devotion. And then on the other side, you have her twin brother, Benedict. He's the lawgiver, the father of Western monasticism, famous for his super strict rule, ora et labora, pray and work. They were totally united in their faith, but they really did represent two sides of the same spiritual coin.
You know, their lives really did run on these parallel tracks. Both of them dedicated themselves to God when they were super young. He goes off and founds the now famous monastery at Monte Cassino, and she starts her own community for nuns just a stone's throw away. But here's the catch. Because of his own strict rules, she wasn't actually allowed inside his monastery. So, they came up with this really beautiful tradition. They'd meet up once a year, every year, just to talk.
And this annual tradition went on for years. But it was during one of these meetings, when they were both getting on in years, that the stage was set for something really dramatic, their final encounter. There was just something different in the air this time, a kind of urgency to their conversation. The old accounts say that Scholastica, well, she had a feeling, a premonition really, a sense that their time together on Earth was running out.
And man, this just shows you how deep their bond was. They spent the entire day, from morning till evening, completely lost in conversation. We're talking about the big stuff, right? The nature of God, the joys of heaven, the real-world challenges of the spiritual life, the stories of the saints, the whole shebang.
But as the day ended and night started to fall, their two very different worldviews, one all about love, the other all about the law, were about to have a head-on collision.
So Benedict announced he had to leave. For him, it was a no-brainer. He wrote the rule, right? The very set of laws that governed his entire monastery. And his rule was very clear. He was absolutely forbidden from spending a night away from his monastery. End of story.
Scholastica begged him to stay. She pleaded with him, let's just keep talking about God through the night. And you have to understand, this wasn't just a casual request. It was coming from that deep sense of, this is our last time, from this incredible love for her brother. But his answer? A firm no. The law was the law. So, what do you do when human arguments fail? Well, Scholastica, unable to change her brother's mind with words, decided to turn to a much higher authority. She stopped talking, bowed her head, and just started to pray.
And what happened in that very next moment, well, this is why we're still telling this story. This is what revealed where the real power is.
I mean, instantly. The accounts say the second she lowered her head, a massive violent storm just erupted out of what was a clear sky. We're talking thunder, lightning, a downpour so heavy there was no way Benedict and his monks were going anywhere. The response to her prayer was immediate. Benedict's reaction is just total shock. He looks at her and says, "May God forgive you, sister. What have you done?" He's not even angry. He's just floored. In that moment, he realizes his precious rule, his own law, has just been completely overruled by a power way, way bigger than him.
In her reply, it's the absolute heart of the whole story. It's so gentle but so powerful. She says, "I asked you, and you would not listen, so I asked my God, and he did listen." It's this incredibly direct statement, right? Basically, I tried talking to you, but you wouldn't budge, so I talked to God. And he heard me. But the story doesn't even end there with the storm. 3 days later, Benedict is praying back in his monastery, and he has this vision. He sees his sister's soul ascending to heaven in the form of a pure white dove. It was this beautiful heavenly sign that confirmed two things.
that she had passed away, and that she was a saint.
And Benedict's final act, wow, it's just such a powerful symbol. He had her body brought to his monastery, the very place she couldn't enter at night, and he buried her in the tomb he had prepared for himself. I mean, think about that. The saint and the lawgiver, two halves of a whole, finally united in death.
So, okay, why are we still talking about this story 1,500 years later? It's more than just a cool story about a miracle storm, right? It's about what that storm really tells us about that tension, that same tension between law and love that we still deal with all the time.
And this really is the key. The ancient account of her life says it's no surprise she could do more because she loved more. See, her power wasn't magic. The idea is that the source of her strength, what made her prayer so powerful, was just the incredible depth of her love. It was love that commanded the skies.
The story has been passed down because it teaches these three huge truths. First, that a life completely dedicated to God is a beautiful thing. Second, that humble, heartfelt prayer has some serious power. And third, and this is the big one, that love is the fulfillment of the law. It's the whole point of any good rule in the first place.
And that's really the core lesson here. The point of the miracle wasn't just to break Benedict's rule for the fun of it. No, it was to show the higher purpose of the rule. It was to prove that laws find their deepest meaning only when they serve love and connection. So love didn't destroy the law, it actually fulfilled it.
And that's what this ancient story leaves us with, a really modern question. It asked us to think about that tricky balance in our own lives, right? In our families, at our jobs. When is it right to bend a rule for a higher good? When does compassion, when does love demand that we look past the letter of the law and see the spirit behind it? It's a question that's just as powerful today as that storm was all those centuries ago.